Hey, I'm Trevor from SmashweRx over at Diablo. Killer WOD going on in the background. We got John on the camera again. He's helping me out. I've been getting a lot of people talking to me about the overhead squat. So if you look at the overhead squat, it's a great way to absolutely expose every weakness that you have and every mobility issue you have, because it's going to involve the ankles, the hips. It's going to involve thoracic spine extension. It's going to involve getting those shoulders open and getting them overhead. And what we see with a lot of people when they overhead squat is that they're fighting to feed slack into the system any way they possibly can. So I know a lot of you guys overhead squat like this. Bad. Because what's going to happen is when you drop into that squat, your knees are going to cave in. You're going to fight to find a way to put yourself in that position any way you can, except this kind of stuff with your hand overhead. Does this even look remotely stable? No, not at all. So we're not going to do stuff like that. Instead, we're going to find out where the problem is in that hierarchy of movement, and then we're going to solve it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to check ankle mobility, because while we're using our ankles. Now the difference between an overhead squat and a regular squat is when you're in a regular squat, you're in your squat stance, you're going to sink with your butt all the way down into the bottom of the squat, except if you look, where the line of drive with my glutes is, where my butt is going to be behind the heels. With an overhead squat, same as when you're in the receiving position of a squat snatch, your butt is going to be as close to the ankles as possible. So I want you to think about taking your butt and bringing it as close to the ankles as possible. The way you test it is, put your feet about a hand width apart, and then just sink down into the bottom. If you can do this, then you have ankle mobility to do an overhead squat. If you get to here, and all of a sudden you start to wobble around or you fall backwards, then we already figured out the problem with the ankles. We'll come back to mobilizing the ankles in about 5 minutes. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to check the hips. So the easiest way to check the hips, there's two things that happen. We either get a hip impingement, so our hips get to about here, then we hit a shelf. We hit that acetabulum, and then our psoas tries to recover some of that motion and hyperextend our lumbar spine. So we've seen people where they overhead squat, their arms are way up high, but they're way hyperextended, and they're cranking their neck up, and they're really breaking that whole chain. So what we do, get on the edge of a box, make sure you can get your feet on the bottom, and all you're going to do is you're going to bend forward. When you bend forward, if you feel two things, one, your backside's coming up, your butt's coming up off that box, we have a hip issue because it's pulling you forward. And number two is, if you're coming forward and you start to translate like this to recapture some of that motion, what you should be able to do is you should be able to come all the way forward without your butt coming up off the box, and you should be able to have about 120 to 130 degrees up in here. So if you don't have that, we'll address that too. Next thing we have is that thoracic extension. So what happens is your thoracic spine has to arch up just a little bit and open up. Now the problem with the thoracic spine is it's designed to be really stable, protect all the organs, but the vertebrae are also wedge shaped. So it's gonna fight you to open up as much as humanly possible. Then we have the rib cage that's holding that thoracic spine in place as well. So we're gonna work on opening up that thoracic spine the way it's supposed to with as much as we can, and depending on how mobile you are. Some people can get really far back. Like if you look at my daughter, she's a gymnast. She can fold herself in half both frontwards and backwards. There's no way I can do that yet, all right? But we'll make it happen. All right, so we're gonna work on thoracic extension. The next thing is those shoulders. So when you're overhead squatting, and if your shoulders are here, and you're doing this, and you're doing this as much as you can to try and get into that position, well, the problem is if you look at my shoulder, I'm rolling it forward to get slack into the system, right? Because I'm gonna feed slack into this motor any way I possibly can to get into the position in the bottom of that squat. Well, look what I'm doing though. As I unwind that joint capsule, incredibly unstable, I'm turning my elbows towards you instead of towards the floor, and I'm rolling those wrists forward, so it's very hard for me to break apart that bar when I'm dropping into the receiving position of a squat snatch or that overhead squat. And the overhead squat is the precursor to being able to do a really efficient squat snatch, which we'll address on another video. But so what you want to be able to do is punch out really high. You're going to keep that chest really high. You're going to expose the armpit to your audience. You're going to keep those elbows pointed down, and you're going to be breaking that bar. Okay, so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be dropping like this versus rolling your arms over like this to try and do it. So I'm going to show you how to recover some of that shoulder mobility, but we want to do some tests first. So we saw the hip test, we saw the ankle test. Let's test the shoulders and see if we can do that. So we're going to grab the PVC pipe. We're gonna get up against a wall, 90 degrees, right? We're gonna take the PVC at about our width for an overhead squat, and all we're gonna do is bring it back like this. If I have no space under my lumbar spine, now I'm gonna take a hand away just so you can see, but I have no space here. So that's what you want. If I'm doing this, and I'm trying to arch it so you can see, I'll pull my shirt up. So you can arch, if you have to arch to do this, then you don't have the shoulder mobility yet to get into that overhead squat position. If I'm nice and flat like this, and I'm all the way up and I can break apart the PVC pipe, guess what? Shoulder mobility works for doing that overhead squat. So now here's the fix for all of this. We'll start with the ankle. And I know we're flying through this video, but I want to make sure you guys get all this information. So I got a 45 here. You're going to get into a position, so you can get either way or just a knee, but I want the ankle that you're working on mobilizing to have the weight on it. So get the weight over the knee, and then just, and you can see my heel is driving into the floor, but I'm letting the weight do the work. So I'm letting gravity do all the work right now, and it's pushing my foot down into the floor, and it's driving my knee up over the foot to keep that ankle nice and stable, but it's putting a lot of mobility into that ankle. We're gonna hold this for 2 minutes, do both sides. That's number one. Moving up the chain, we're gonna go hit the hips. So the way you're gonna do it is you're gonna take a really, really wide stance. Okay, so I'm like as wide as I can possibly be. We're hitting hip flexors on this side when we're upright, so we can hold this right off the bat for easily 2 minutes. If this is really easy for you, squeeze your butt. Turn towards this leg. Next thing you know, you're capturing that psoas in here even more, okay? If that's for this hip. Now we're gonna go on the outside, the leg that's bent. We're gonna grab the foot, and you're gonna see I'm making a nice perpendicular line to the ground here. We're gonna grab the foot, and we're just gonna sink in, okay? You're gonna let that foot roll over, and all we're gonna do is just punch around. You're gonna feel it up inside the thigh, you're gonna feel it up in the high hip. Now what you're gonna do after this, bring your hand in here, and try and bring your chest or your belly button to the floor. So you're just gonna come all the way down, and oh man, that is friggin' tight. So you're gonna do that. That's 2 minutes each one, so that's 4 minutes of stretching just for the hip. It's gonna hit in here, it's gonna hit the high hip. Now we're looking at thoracic extension. That's why I have a med ball here. Try and use a heavier med ball, not because we're throwing it at the wall, but because what you need is you want it nice and dense so you're not sinking into it. A 14 is like laying on a marshmallow. So you're gonna get over this. I know a lot of guys do this with a bar overhead, that's fine, but we're gonna hit the shoulders differently, so we're just working on thoracic spine right now. You're gonna find the middle between, so if this is your scapula, that's your area, that's your target area. And you're just gonna get on that. If your legs are bent or if they're not, that's okay, but I want you to relax and really punch out your shoulders like this, but relax your thoracic spine and pull your head through, because nobody overhead squats like this. So mobilize in the position you want to be in, right? So we're going to sit here and let gravity just take over. We're just going to breathe. You know, you can contract, relax a couple of times. Do that for about 2 minutes and let that rib cage open up, let that thoracic spine really open up. That's going to stretch what's called the anterior longitudinal ligament, so you have a lot of movement in that thoracic spine. Now the shoulders is a sticky one. So we're going to grab the green band first. First thing we're going to do is we're going to capture some of that chest. We're going to bias this tissue right here so we can actually open up those shoulders, because what happens is the chest is going to pull you forward, so you can't even get up into that position because it's starting to grab. So all we do is we take a band. Now, normally I'd have this at about shoulder height. I want this higher for this stretch. You're going to get your hand inside here, wind it up, externally rotate like we always do, and then all you're going to do is you're going to pull away. Now what's really cool is, you really want to make this stretch effective. Turn your head. Turn your head, open up that arm. So now I'm stretching all the way across here. Like when I do this, I am biasing all this tissue across here, and I'm just stretching it out, stripping it out, making it move. That's number one. Hold for 2 minutes. You know the routine already. I don't even think I should have to say 2 minutes anymore. That's number one. The shoulders, there's more going on than just one simple fix, because there's a lot of mechanics involved in the shoulder. The second one is, you're going to come up to the top of the rig, and I promise there's only 3 for the shoulder. You're going to come up to the top of the rig, we'll use this one because it's closer to the camera. We're gonna get in here. Now we've seen this, where we wind up that joint capsule and we do this. So that's gonna capture a lot of the lat, the teres. But you know what I want you to do now is I want you to turn the hand out a little bit just so you have a brace. And I'm gonna have you externally rotate. So you can see how it's really starting to externally rotate that shoulder. We're gonna hold this. Good. We're gonna do both sides. And then the last one, it's freaking awesome having music in the background of these videos. You're gonna take your bend. Now you guys have seen me do this one before. There's two ways of doing this. We're gonna do the basic and the aggressive. So we call it basic and beefy. So basic is palms forward. You're just gonna go as wide as you can. You can suicide grip if you want, you can hook grip if you want, it doesn't matter, you're not gonna be doing much. But you're gonna punch your head through and you're just gonna let gravity take you, okay? Super easy stretch. I know we're unwinding the joint capsule here, but this is easy if someone can't wind up that joint capsule. We're just gonna let gravity do this. Now when you come out, let yourself just relax. Careful on that dismount, it gets a little tricky. Next one is, we're gonna do this. We're gonna externally rotate those shoulders. And we're gonna do the same thing. Let gravity take us, and we're gonna camp out here. Now you see the difference here, I'm winding up that joint capsule. You're gonna let gravity take you, and you're just gonna hang there for as long as possible. You try for 2 minutes, most people last about 20 or 30 seconds, it gets a little tight. That's gonna give you a lot of overhead stability. It's gonna open up all the tissues in here in some really, really quick stretches instead of having to go through all these different drills. So check the ankles, check the hips, check the thoracic spine, check the shoulders, and then go through all the mobility drills I just gave you. I'm Trevor from SmashweRx. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.